You ever wonder why some older men, despite their success, experience, and confidence, still get completely overlooked by younger women? It's not the age, it's the attitude, because the truth is, there are certain habits that instantly turn attraction into irritation. And if you don't know what they are, chances are you're already doing them. Let's break the silence. Let's talk, because there's a conversation happening, whether you hear it or not. It's happening in salons, in group chats, in quiet corners of restaurants. And it sounds like this. Why is he acting like that? He could be attractive, but, ugh. See, younger women are not necessarily opposed to older men. In fact, many are drawn to the maturity, the experience, the confidence that comes with age. But there's a catch, and that catch is this: the moment an older man starts slipping into these unattractive habits, all that appeal disappears. Fast, let's get into it. 1. Acting like you're doing her a favor. Listen, confidence is attractive, arrogance is not. There's a difference between knowing your worth and thinking she owes you something for being older. Just because you've been around the block doesn't mean she should be grateful you spoke to her. Respect goes both ways, no matter the age gap. 2. Trying too hard to be young, wearing clothes that scream mid, life crisis, talking in slang you don't understand, copying Gen Z dance trends. Stop. There's nothing wrong with being your age. In fact, owning it with class and authenticity is far more attractive. If you're constantly trying to compete with 25-year-olds, you come off as insecure, not youthful. 3. Always comparing now to back then. Nobody wants to sit through a lecture on how women used to be different, or how dating was better in your day. Constant comparisons make you sound bitter, not wise. Younger women are living now. If you keep dragging them into the past, you disconnect from their reality. 4. Flexing money as your personality. Yes, older men often have more financial stability, but here's a truth bomb: money doesn't replace personality, emotional maturity, or presence. If your only move is showing off your car, your watch, or how much you paid for dinner, she'll quickly realize there's nothing else behind the wallet. That's not attractive, it's hollow. 5. Talking down to her intelligence. Don't assume that just because she's younger, she's clueless. Women of any age can tell when you're mansplaining or patronizing. If you constantly interrupt her thoughts or dismiss her opinions with "you'll understand when you're older," don't be surprised when she stops listening altogether. 6. Seeking validation from younger women. Let's be honest, some men don't want partnership, they want praise. They seek out younger women not for connection, but for ego strokes, and that energy is loud. If your main goal is to feel desired or needed, you're not building a relationship, you're feeding a void. And most women pick up on that quickly. 7. Neglecting your health and appearance. Here's the truth: she's taking care of herself, mind, body, and spirit. If you show up with no energy, no effort, and no self-care, she's not going to find that appealing. Aging gracefully doesn't mean letting go of your health. It means evolving with time, not giving up to it. Let me be clear, being older is not the problem. In fact, it can be an incredible advantage. But if you carry around outdated attitudes, ego-driven behavior, or a desperate need to impress, younger women won't see your age as wisdom, they'll see it as a warning sign. So if you truly want to stand out, do this: be grounded, be self-aware, be someone who doesn't chase youth but radiates presence. That's the kind of energy no age can deny. Let's talk, because there's a conversation happening, whether you hear it or not. It's happening in salons, in group chats, in quiet corners of restaurants, and it sounds like this: why is he acting like that? He could be attractive, but, ugh. See, younger women are not necessarily opposed to older men. In fact, many are drawn to the maturity, the experience, the confidence that comes with age. But there's a catch, And that catch is this: the moment an older man starts slipping into these unattractive habits, all that appeal disappears fast. One of the biggest turn-offs, acting like you're doing her a favor by simply being there. That energy, that attitude of entitlement, is not just unattractive, it's repellent. Confidence is attractive. Arrogance is not, and too many older men cross that line without even realizing it. Just because you're older doesn't mean she owes you her attention. Just because you've lived more life doesn't mean you're automatically more desirable. She doesn't owe you respect because you have gray in your beard or a few more digits in your bank account. You still have to earn it, like anyone else. You see, some men walk into a room with younger women and expect admiration. They carry themselves like their presence should be enough, like they're the prize by default. That mindset immediately changes the dynamic, and not in your favor. It creates an imbalance where you think she should be grateful to be in your orbit, while she's quietly wondering why you're so full of yourself. The truth is, younger women today are confident. They have options. They are ambitious, self-aware, and often more emotionally intelligent than they're given credit for. They can spot performative confidence a mile away. They can smell entitlement like cheap cologne. When you approach a younger woman with this air of superiority, you're not showing maturity, you're showing insecurity dressed up in ego. Some older men hide behind their age as a badge of honor. They believe that years lived automatically equate to value added. But it doesn't work that way anymore. Maturity is not about how long you've been alive, it's about how well you've evolved, how you listen, how you respect, how you show up in a conversation without dominating it. When you act like you're doing her a favor, what you're really doing is revealing a lack of respect. It shows that deep down you're more invested in being validated than in being connected, that you're more concerned with being admired than being understood. And here's the real issue: when you act like this, it sends the message that you see her as less wise, less capable, less worthy, and that is a quick way to lose her interest. What women value isn't your age, it's your presence. It's your ability to listen without lecturing, to share your experiences without using them to belittle hers. It's your ability to lead without overpowering. If you believe your age alone puts you above her, you've already lost her respect. The most attractive older men are the ones who meet younger women as equals. They don't rely on age as a crutch. They let their maturity speak through their humility. They don't overcompensate, and they don't carry a scoreboard of achievements they think should impress her. They let their energy do the talking. They walk into a room and own who they are not because they expect attention, but because they've earned their confidence through self-awareness, not self-importance. Trying too hard to be young is one of the quickest ways older men lose their appeal in the eyes of younger women. It's not about the age difference itself, it's about the energy you bring into the space. When a man steps into a room trying to mimic the look, language, and lifestyle of someone 20 years younger, it doesn't create attraction, it creates confusion. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your appearance, staying fit, or being in touch with current culture. In fact, those things can be quite attractive when done with balance, but the moment you cross into the territory of imitation, you lose the very thing that could make you stand out: authenticity. Women don't want to date a man who looks like he's desperately clinging to his youth, like it's slipping through his fingers. It shows in the way you dress, in the way you talk, in the way you post on social media, trying to fit into trends that don't belong to you. It's the difference between aging gracefully and aging anxiously, and believe me, that anxiety seeps through every move you make. You see, what younger women often admire in older men is a sense of calm, that internal security that says, I know who I am. But when you start copying the style, the slang, or even the lifestyle of someone younger, What you're really doing is saying, I don't think who I am is good enough anymore. That insecurity is louder than anything you wear or say. It's loud in the way you force jokes that don't land. It's loud in the way you drop artists or influencers you don't really know. It's loud in the way you try to insert yourself into conversations that you clearly don't understand. Younger women want to connect with someone who knows himself, someone who can walk into a room and own his space without pretending to be someone he's not. That's what makes older men attractive, not their ability to keep up with 25-year-olds, but their ability to be unapologetically themselves. When you try too hard to act young, what you communicate is that being your age isn't something to be proud of. And if you're not proud of it, why should she be drawn to it? There's something powerful about a man who doesn't flinch at his own reflection, who dresses with intention, speaks with clarity, and moves with quiet confidence. He doesn't need to wear sneakers meant for teenagers or jeans 2 sizes too tight. He doesn't need to be in every viral moment. He doesn't need to change his entire personality just to get her to look his way, because the right kind of attention doesn't come from trying to blend in, it comes from standing out in the right way. There's also the reality that when an older man tries too hard to act young, it sends a message that he's not comfortable leading with maturity. Instead of offering guidance, wisdom, or emotional depth, he offers mimicry. And that doesn't create attraction, it creates disconnection. It makes her question if you're trying to impress her or compete with her, and if she feels like you're in silent competition with her generation, the respect starts to fade. Attraction, at its core, is rooted in emotional energy. When you're authentic, grounded, and self-aware, that energy draws people in. When you're imitating, second guessing, or overcompensating, that energy pushes them away. Being older should be your advantage, not your insecurity. When you embrace your age with dignity, class, and presence, you don't need to try hard. You already have everything working in your favor. Older men who constantly compare now to back then don't realize how unattractive that habit can be. What sounds like casual conversation to them often feels like criticism to the women listening. When you sit across from a younger woman and begin every story with "back in my day" or "women used to be," you're not opening a door to deeper understanding, you're building a wall between generations. It's not the nostalgia that's the problem, it's the tone of judgment that tends to come with it. When you frame everything in the past as better and everything in the present as worse, you're not making yourself sound experienced. You're making yourself sound out of touch. Younger women want to be heard, not compared. They're living in a different world than the one you came up in. They're navigating challenges you may not have faced, and they've developed strengths because of it. When you dismiss their reality or constantly try to contrast it with your own era, it feels like you're telling them they're doing life wrong, that they need to rewind the clock and act more like the women you once knew. That kind of messaging doesn't draw a woman closer to you, it makes her feel like she's being judged, not valued. It sends the message that you're not really interested in who she is today, but more in how she compares to some idealized version of the past that probably wasn't even perfect to begin with. This habit of comparing also creates an invisible power struggle. It becomes less of a conversation and more of a debate where you're trying to prove that your way was better, your time was richer, your values were stronger. That can be exhausting to be around. Women want connection, not correction. They want a partner who can relate to them, not someone who feels the need to constantly school them. And it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. The sighs, the eye rolls, the sarcastic, "I guess that's how things are now," all communicate the same thing: disapproval. There's also a kind of emotional distance that comes from living too much in the past. When a man is constantly reminiscing, it gives the impression that he's more invested in what used to be than what could be. And that makes it hard for any woman to imagine a future with him. She wants to know that you're still curious, still engaged, still evolving, that you're not just surviving in this era, but thriving in it mentally, emotionally, and socially. When you resist the present and constantly criticize it, you look like someone who's lost touch, not someone who's gained perspective. Younger women don't expect older men to know everything about their world, but they do expect a certain openness, a willingness to understand, to ask questions, to explore without judgment. They want to be seen and appreciated for who they are now, not measured against a checklist of outdated ideals. When you approach the conversation with curiosity instead of criticism, you invite her into your world without rejecting hers. That's when real connection starts to happen. It's perfectly fine to share stories from your past. In fact, when done with humility and relevance, it can deepen the bond, but the key is to avoid using your experiences as a weapon to diminish hers. Your wisdom should be a bridge, not a barrier. The goal isn't to prove that your generation was better, it's to show that you've grown through the years and can still meet her in the moment without dragging her backward. There's a difference between being financially stable and making your money your entire personality. And it's a line a lot of older men unknowingly cross. They step into conversations leading with what they own, what they've bought, what they've achieved financially, thinking that's enough to earn admiration, respect, even affection. But what they fail to understand is this: when your money speaks louder than your character, it becomes noise, not power. Younger women are not blind to success, and they're not ungrateful for generosity. But they can tell when you're using wealth as a mask to cover up a lack of depth. When every other sentence is about your car, your business, your luxury lifestyle, it stops sounding impressive and starts sounding like compensation. Younger women are living in a time where independence is their language. They're building careers, side hustles, and futures that don't depend on anyone handing them a lifestyle. So, when an older man leads with his wallet, it often feels less like a gift and more like a transaction. Like he's offering access in exchange for attention. And that dynamic feels imbalanced, untrustworthy, and unattractive. What women want is not just what you can provide, but who you are when the credit card is off the table. Can you offer conversation that stimulates the mind, not just dinners at high-end places? Can you make her feel emotionally safe, not just financially impressed? A man who constantly highlights his wealth usually reveals his insecurities, not his status. It shows that he's unsure if who he is, without the labels and the luxury, is enough. And when that becomes the energy you bring into a relationship, it puts pressure on the woman to play a role, to be grateful, to be impressed, to perform. But that kind of relationship is fragile. It's built on show, not substance, and most women, especially younger women who are constantly evolving and seeking genuine connection, will start to pull away from that kind of energy. There's also a silent message that gets communicated when a man leads with money, that he believes money gives him control, that by offering financial security, he can dictate the pace, the boundaries, even the direction of the relationship. And that's where things get dangerous, because true attraction doesn't thrive under control, it thrives under freedom. If a woman feels like she's being bought instead of being valued, she will withdraw emotionally, even if she stays physically. She'll feel more like an accessory than a partner, and no amount of money can fix that disconnect once it settles in. Wealth is not the problem. In fact, it can be a powerful asset when paired with emotional intelligence, humility, and presence. But when money becomes the main character in every interaction, everything else fades. The laughter, the connection, the sense of discovery, all of it gets lost behind the performance of impressing. And over time, that becomes exhausting for both people involved. Real intimacy comes from being seen, not from being shown off. It comes from vulnerability, not vanity. And a man who has truly mastered his success knows how to share it without using it as a crutch. There's also a unique kind of respect that grows when a man is generous without being boastful, when he pays for dinner without mentioning the price, when he gifts something meaningful, not because he wants attention, but because he noticed what she liked. That kind of quiet power speaks volumes. It tells her you're not trying to buy her, you're trying to understand her. And that shift changes everything, because in a world full of noise and flash, authenticity still wins. Every time. So if you're an older man who truly wants to stand out, stop chasing admiration with your wallet, your age, or your stories of the past. Start showing up with presence, purpose, and emotional awareness. Be the man who doesn't try to impress but naturally leaves an impression, because in the end, younger women aren't looking for a man who can buy their attention. They're looking for one who can hold it with confidence, class, and character.